Hi, everyone. This is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series, Monogamous at 13. This is the story where I tell about my trauma, my experiences from two perspectives. One is as the trauma and abuse survivor, and the other one as the mental health practitioner that is an expert on trauma. And so when you combine those two things in the same video, you have an example of what the trauma looked like, what it felt like, what the experience was, and why we would consider that to be trauma or a traumatic experience, event, circumstance, occurrence, environment, or situation. And then the trauma professional who kind of takes it apart on the table and explains what that does to our system and ways that we could make strategies to heal it, or things that we could use as self-care, things that we could do to, if it's a relational thing, what are the strategies that we could use? Just kind of lay them all out on the table. What could we do about this? Well, today, this is special episode number 140. And I'm doing something a little bit different today. I had a weird experience yesterday, and it relates to trauma. And I would like to tell you about it today because I think it would be a really cool way to illustrate certain concepts in trauma and when we are traumatized. So, and this one is really fresh and recent. But before I start, there's two things. There's a trigger warning, and it would be so nice if you would have a grounding tool close by or in your hand while you watch this to remind your mind and your brain that we are connected to a body, and to remind the body that we are connected to the brain and the mind, and that we are having an experience that is someone else's story, and that it is not anything unsafe happening to us right now. Our nervous system, if we are a trauma survivor, our nervous system needs to be grounded whenever we're doing anything in the realm of listening to, learning about, or discussing trauma. So I have my little grounding stone, but you'll notice it's not my holy stone. I lost my holy stone yesterday, and in the story I'll tell you why. But that's not the traumatic experience that I'm speaking about. I'll let you know when I get to the traumatic experience, but I have to give you the backstory on it first. So if you have taken care of your system's needs and brought yourself into a state of anchored and groundedness, we're ready to go. If you don't know how to bring yourself into a state of anchored and groundedness, please go into my video list for my channel and look for special episode number 57, and it explains how to become anchored and grounded. The title is How to Prevent and Handle Triggers. And so all of us at some point in time become triggered. Many of us, it happens every day. And that is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of our body's responses and our emotional responses and our psychological responses to being exposed to trauma, and then having some residuals of it still remaining in us. We call that being triggered. Whenever something happens, we see, smell, taste, touch, experience something, we hear something, and it sends us right back. It sends us right back into those moments where we don't feel good. Right back to the original feelings that we felt when traumatic experience happened. So I'll get into the story now. First, I'll tell you how I lost my holy stone, okay? My little grounding tool that was one of my, I had two favorites. And today I'm going through the process of letting go of something that was really special to me. Some of you may be saying, it's just a little pebble. Yes, but it's a little pebble that helped me do a tremendous amount of trauma recovery. And I was using it to help you do some of your trauma recovery. And so it was just special to me. We can get bonded to objects that feel good to us and help us to be able to accomplish what we want. Well, I can use a different stone, and I've already started to use a different stone. This little pebble is from Lake Erie. I've had it for years, and it's just a really nice little piece of, appears to be red jasper. All right, so here's what happened. yesterday, I was on day 5 of not feeling good. I had a flank pain, a pain in my side, right at the bottom of my ribs, and it was unbearable. I mean, really, really, really painful. And I had had several nights of not being able to sleep comfortably because when it started, it was kind of mild. And as each day progressed, it was getting more painful for me. And I knew that something was wrong in there, but I couldn't tell. I mean, I'm prone to having kidney problems. I've had 9 kidney stones, and I thankfully have passed 6 of them, but 3 of them had to come out surgically. And I have not had an experience where a kidney stone hurts towards the front, but I was worried that it could have been a kidney stone. I was also worried that it could have been something scary, a sudden severe pain that comes on. That could, I mean, it could be an aneurysm, it could be anything. It could be a tumor, it could be a pulled muscle, it could be literally anything. So, but I got a twofer, and what I mean by that is the same time that I'm like on the fence waiting, maybe tomorrow it'll feel better. Nope, getting up in the morning, nope, had a terrible night, hardly slept all night, can't, because you can't get comfortable. Every time you turn over, it wakes you up and goes, hello, I'm still here hurting you. That pain is still there. So I started to notice 2 days into this, I start to notice I have a sore finger, and the finger is starting to swell. I'll show it to you. It's red. It has a spot on it, but that's not a bite or a cut or anything. It's under the skin. It's just a red spot, but it's clearly an infected finger. Well, it's starting to turn. It was like this. It's so tight that my finger can't really feel much sensation there, but you can see it stops at this knuckle. This is an infected fingertip, and no injury that I'm aware of happened to it. So yesterday, it looked a little angrier than this. Okay, I've been on the medication for 2 full doses so far, and it's already starting to come down in its severity. But I'm starting to think, okay, I get up yesterday morning, I'm up at 7 o'clock, and I'm like, this pain in my side is awful. Now the finger is looking way worse. We're getting in the car, took care of my puppies and met their needs, and then I get my stuff gathered up, and I'm always reading. So make sure I've got 2 books with me in case I have to stay there, because I don't know what's going on with my body. But I get to the hospital, I check myself in, and it's almost empty. This is my go-to hospital. It's my favorite one for if it's not a traumatic injury, then that's where I go. If it was that's where I have all my surgeries. If I had a car accident with a traumatic surgery, I would be asking them, please take me to the level 1 trauma center, or if they see certain things, they do automatically. But I have been asked in my accident, where do you want us to take you? But the hospital that I'm speaking about is a ways away from my house. It's about a 20-minute drive. And I got there and I checked myself in, and they said, what are you here for? And I said, actually 2 things, 2 unrelated, totally separate things are going on at the same time with me. And so they took me into triage, and then they, excuse me, no. It was the nurse at the desk that just got my information and then said, have a seat. We'll call you into triage when we're ready for you. And I said, okay. So I sit down, and no sooner do I sit down, and I can talk about this because I don't work there. I'm not breaking HIPAA and I'm very conscientious about HIPAA, extremely so. But I don't work there. I've never worked there. And the person who came in is not any relation to me. And I'm not using her name. I have no idea who this family is. I don't even know anything further about them except for what I'm going to tell you today. So this is not, I want to make sure that you understand that I am not speaking about anybody and exposing their personal private material information. That is not what I do. All right, so the EMT and a patient come into the waiting room. They come through the doors, these double doors open, and he's got her in a wheelchair, and she's about my age, and she has a cervical collar on, one of those hard plastic cervical collars, and she's just shaking, and she's all by herself, and she's just tremoring, just completely tremorous. And she wasn't out of control. I mean, she wasn't crying, she wasn't yelling, she wasn't doing anything. She was very quiet, but she was just shaking. And she had what I recognized immediately as a trauma professional and used to work in an emergency room. I recognized immediately the facial expression of, I'm in shock. And so I was surprised, really surprised. I'm not criticizing anyone, but I was really surprised that they would take a patient who is shocky from an accident, no doubt about it. The vacant stare, and just the no focus in the eyes, and didn't seem to have much awareness of her surroundings or herself. And she's just absolutely she's got her arms crossed, and she's just tremorous. And the only thing I could think of to do is to say, honey, I haven't gone in to get triaged yet. They'll call my name very shortly because there's nobody else here. So when I go in, would you like me to ask them for a warm blanket for you? And she just without even looking at me, she went, yes. And I said, okay, I will. And so when they called me, I went in there and I said, I'm so sorry to bother you for this. I know you got so much to do, but there's a lady that's in the waiting room. I'm sure you know she's there, but she's, the lady in the pink shirt, she is just absolutely shivering. She's just been obviously in a bad accident. And I wonder if it'd be possible, when you have a moment, if you could please put a warm blanket on her. And they said, yes, of course we can. Sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking on her behalf. Thank you. And I said, oh, it's no trouble. No trouble. So I got my vitals taken, and they sent me back to wait. And when I went out there, she had her blanket on, and she still looked very disconnected. And then a short time after, just a moment after I sat down, they took her through the doors and took her back, obviously to a room. And so it's just me in the waiting room. There's a couple people way down at the other end of the video, of the end of the room, watching either some sort of video or morning news or whatever on the television. But there was a vast distance between us. It's a long, narrow waiting room, and they're way down there. So there's just me sitting in a chair, and two people come through the door, and they sit down. They have the whole wide open expanse to sit in. And where do they sit? At the chairs. It was sort of like an L-shaped seating arrangement. So there's my chair, and then three chairs that are sort of perpendicular, but not touching. They're just, like if I reach out my arm all the way, I would not be able to touch their knees, but it's pretty close. It'd be like maybe 5 inches from my fingertips. That's how close they were sitting. And I could hear everything that they were saying. And this is why I'm speaking about what happened, because this is a scenario where something happened, and I was hearing in real time how somebody was processing a traumatic event. So they're just chattering away, and it's clearly a father and his daughter. And the person who was in the pink shirt and the cervical collar and, injured, was the wife and the mother of these two. Okay. His wife, her mother. And the daughter is expressing things like, well, I know she's okay. I know she's okay. If they brought her here, meaning she knew the difference between trauma hospital and this hospital. And she said, I know she's okay because they brought her here. And I'm thinking she might be a nurse. She might have worked somehow in health systems in our city. She has a very noticeable awareness that when you are severely injured in an auto accident, it's very unlikely they're going to bring you to this hospital. And that gave her some comfort. She was expressing, I'm comfortable with the fact that she's okay because she's here. And she said, I don't know if she witnessed the accident or if she had been in the car when the accident happened. That wasn't clear to me. But I know for certain that the husband was at the scene of the accident. I don't know if he was riding in the car with her. I don't know if he was riding in a car behind her. If they were both leaving home at the same time to go to work, and he witnessed her ahead of him being hit in an accident. But it was a 3-car accident. And he made it very, very clear. He's talking about, the 3-car accident and, just talking about it that way, all 3 cars involved. And I began to be shocked by what he was saying. His vehicle, he was stating clearly to the daughter, and I'm just going to quote him directly, "I am so effing pissed that 2 of the vehicles were totaled and mine wasn't. They're both getting new cars out of their insurance. I'm not. My car's going to be probably in the shop for weeks getting repaired over this." And then he did something that I couldn't believe. See this, if this is his spouse and the mother of his child, and she's saying mom, and he's referring to her as mom, when we get to go back and see her, he says, "I bet you anything, the only thing wrong with her is she's going to have whiplash. If she got hit that hard in an accident, she's going to have whiplash." And he said, he said, "That's going to be a pain in the neck for her, literally a pain in the neck for her for a while. But I think that's all that's wrong with her." He's making an assumption before she's even thoroughly examined in a hospital. He's saying, "I think it's just whiplash." And the daughter was being very quiet while he was saying some of these things. And I could feel it was palpable in the air that the daughter's beginning to feel more and more discomfort with what dad is saying right in front of another human being, or even that he would say these things aloud anywhere, that these would be his feelings and this is what he would say. And she wasn't like my children would do when they were younger, going, "Dad," but I would put this daughter at somewhere around 30 years old, maybe a little more, a little less, but right around 30. And she was completely composed. She was expressing concern. He's saying, "Well, I think it's just whiplash," and she's saying, "Well, we have to just wait and see. We have to wait and see. We don't know yet what she has had as far as her injuries, but clearly she's injured, or else she wouldn't have been put in an ambulance and sent to the hospital." And he said, he starts going off in a different direction, and he says, "Well, I looked at each vehicle." He said, "I was on the ground. I looked at each vehicle, and the person who caused the accident, their car had," he said, "when I looked inside the window, I couldn't believe what I saw." He said, "There were pills in a prescription bottle, and there was an open package of cough medicine." And he starts going off on this rant. "I want her ass in jail. She's mixing medication. She's taking pills and mixing it with cough syrup. You can't take cough syrup and drive, and you certainly can't take cough syrup and mix it with prescription medications and drive." And he says she was at fault. She had, the proof is right there on her seat. She was mixing medication with alcohol, and I want her ass in jail. And he says, "As soon as we have mom settled here and know what's the matter with her, I'm going straight to the police department and demanding that they arrest her." And I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness. And the daughter did not feed into what dad was saying, but he wouldn't stop saying it. He said, "I got to go outside for a minute. I got to walk for a minute." And he went out the doors, and he was gone for about a full minute. And then he came back in. She said, "Are you all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm just so upset that I have to get that woman arrested. She has to be arrested over this." He said, she damaged my car, and your mom most likely has whiplash from this, and there's going to be a lawsuit over this." And he said, and before that happens, I want her behind bars because she was mixing cough medicine and pills. And the daughter did not push back on that. She was just quiet. And I didn't want to be just like a robot and just staring straight ahead. but I also didn't want to be leaning in and listening to their conversation or inserting myself into their conversation. So I was doing that thing that most people do in politeness, which was acknowledge with your eyes, I see you, or just kind of like, nod when you see them. Just turn your head and just acknowledge that they're there in a silent way. People need to be acknowledged that they're present. If they have to sit in close proximity to someone, it does ease your nervous system if that person in close proximity to you that you've never met before, and you're having one of the worst days you've had in a long time, if that person simply gives off signals that, yes, I know you're there. Yes, I acknowledge your presence. You're a human being and you're present, and I acknowledge that. It doesn't mean we have to help. It doesn't mean we have to smile. It doesn't mean we have to do anything to involve ourselves in it. But their system, their nervous system, finds safety in the environment if the person closest to them or people closest to them just simply acknowledge that they are there. And that's one of the things when you learn about safety as a trauma professional, you understand how there are tiny little things that happen in everyday experiences where we're seeking safety, because our brain does two things for us: keeps us alive and it keeps us safe. And so there was nothing for me to say or do. I was just simply reading my book and just, for, a split second, just letting my gaze go to them for just a flash, and then back to my book. And I was just taking it in. I was just taking in that stuff that they were saying. But what is still with me today from that is I heard no softness or compassion or empathy for what mom, the wife, is going through. None of it, not one syllable of it, was geared towards, I wonder if she's in pain. I wonder if the doctor saw her yet. Oh, I wonder if they're sending her for images. I wonder what kind of images they're going to be doing. I wonder if she's going to need a lot of help after this accident. I wonder if her life just changed. These things, you wouldn't have to discuss them in front of a stranger in the waiting room. Of course you wouldn't. But there was no reference to any of that. It was my car, and I want somebody in jail. And that person had to be at fault. I make the assumption that they were at fault in that accident because of the stuff that's on the seat of her car. Some prescription medication and an opened package. And he made it very clear it was an open package of cough medicine. Well, let's take that apart for a second. A, the prescription may not have been hers. The cough medicine may not have been hers. Even if it was her medication, over-the-counter medication and prescription medication, there's absolutely zero proof that anybody took anything before that accident. She might have grabbed an open package of cough medicine from her house and threw it in the car, and she might have been on the way to work and thinking, I kind of got the sniffles this morning. I might feel worse throughout my day. I'm bringing this medicine with me in case I need it. It could be her child's medicine. He might not have been, he might have been so out of control of himself that he didn't recognize that it is children's Tylenol cold. It could have been her elderly parents' medications or her senior citizen parents' medication. Could have been her spouse or boyfriend's or her partner's medication. The assumption that that person should be in jail, and I see that on the seat, and therefore I created the entire story. I've connected dots and made it fit a picture that I want to see. That happened right in front of me. The guy was making the story up and drawing conclusions, and therefore saying, I am making sure that person gets arrested today. I want her behind bars. Well, I'm being a little sarcastic here, but last time I checked, it's not illegal to drive with an open box, the little cardboard box that a lot of cough medicine comes in. But cough medicine, having the box open and having that on your front seat and driving, and having your prescription bottle of medication next to it while you're driving, has absolutely nothing about it that is illegal. If it is prescribed to you medication, or if it's prescribed to somebody else medication, and it's in the bottle, which it was dispensed in from the pharmacy, and the label hasn't been tampered with, and the medication that says on the outside is in the inside, it is not illegal. And I know of no state where it's illegal to drive under those circumstances with those two things in the car or on the front passenger seat. But this person was coming across as such a toxic person. And some of you might argue, hey, Lynn, anybody who's having their worst moment in their life, or the worst moment they've had in a while, I would argue that that wasn't the worst moment in their life by any means, because no one died and someone was going to obviously be given the medical attention that they need, and was going to be most likely walking out of that hospital under their own power that day, most likely. But here's the thing. Sometimes when we're in a public place, we're experiencing what's called a toxic person. Now, this might seem a little bit redundant to you, but I brought up an AI article, an AI overview from Google about what is a toxic person. And so let's just review this for just a moment together, okay? A toxic person is someone who behaves in a way that is harmful or unpleasant to others, causing negativity and conflict in their lives. Toxic people can be manipulative, controlling, and abusive, and may be referred to as narcissistic, selfish, or sociopathic. They can also be referred to as any of the I don't label people as borderline. I would say this person displays many of the factors of borderline personality disorder. But I can't say to somebody, well, that person has borderline personality, so clearly, no, it's a personality disorder, as is antisocial personality disorder, as is narcissistic personality disorder, as is avoidant personality disorder, as is histrionic personality disorder, as is oppositional defiant personality disorder. All of those things are absolutely real disorders, but we can't diagnose them. The only thing we can do is Dr. Roberta Shaler used to frequently say in her podcast, we can only name the behaviors if we don't have diagnosing credentials. But this person, now being narcissistic, is not by any means the same as being a person with narcissistic personality disorder. And so, yes, we can refer to them as narcissistic. We can refer to them as this person has really high antisocial traits. Okay, but getting past that now, we'll say, okay, some common behaviors of toxic people include gaslighting, covering up their behavior by lying or gaslighting, lack of empathy, not understanding how their behavior impacts others. And I'll pause here for just a quick moment to say, being so willing to put somebody behind bars, say by the end of today, I want her behind bars over this. Just the total lack of empathy. That person was just in a car accident and they may be in their own ambulance. And the stuff on the seat very possibly had absolutely nothing to do with what took place and caused that accident. They might not even have been the cause of the accident. It could have been the third party. Okay, but absolutely no empathy was being spoken for any person involved in the entire accident. None. Sense of superiority, thinking they are more important than others. Well, there you go. I want that person arrested based on no facts, just circumstantial evidence that's pretty weak. Passive aggressive behavior, sulking, giving the silent treatment, or ignoring calls, ignoring any efforts to communicate. That's one of them, passive aggressive, and using that silence and using that as leverage to get what they want, to control another person, using silent treatment as a coercive control. All passive aggressive behavior is all toxic behavior. Every single thing a person can do passive aggressively, because remember, the second word is aggressive. Okay. And then blaming, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Relationship expert Dr. John Gottman calls these the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Dr. John Gottman wrote an excellent book about, I don't want to misquote the title, but it is a green and white book. And I read it, and it's about how to, I think it's like 7 steps to save your marriage or something like that. But Dr. John Gottman is an excellent relationship expert, no doubt, and has multiple books that are published. But blaming, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Those are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in a relationship, in a committed relationship. So what he means by that is, and I wouldn't say this unless I had read his material, that if you blame somebody, if you hold contempt for them, if you are defensive and you are stonewalling them, which means you're not going to give anything, you're not going to give any information, you're not going to share emotions, you're not going to give forgiveness, you're not going to give acceptance, you're not going to cooperate. Stonewalling to me is one of the most outward obvious signs of being oppositionally defiant. You're just opposing that person for the purpose of hurting them or forcing them to do what you want or to see things the way you want them to see it. But yes, blaming, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling are the behaviors of a highly toxic person. So toxic people may have low self-esteem, mental health conditions, or childhood trauma, but their behavior is still hurtful and impactful. And let me point out here, they can also have adult trauma. They can have both. They can have a lifelong series of traumatic events, which I call trauma stringing, just one after another, after another, after another. Or they might have just in adulthood suffered one severe traumatic event. They could be experiencing PTSD after one serious traumatic event. So there could be any number of ways that person could have low self-esteem from something that occurred in their life, either just in their life in a tangential way or directly to them. To protect yourself from toxic people, you can set and maintain boundaries, limit your interactions with them, focus on supportive relationships, be honest about how their behavior impacts you, and seek help from others. Letting go of a toxic person can be a gradual process that requires patience and perseverance. Now, the people that I was next to yesterday were obviously upset that wife and mom had been in an accident. These people, to one it was mom, to the other one it was their wife. And they were both obviously upset that an accident had taken place. All automobile accidents are traumatic, with the exception of just the slightest little fender bender sort of thing. No, that might not be traumatic. But when your car goes out of control and your airbags deploy and you feel something change in your body from an impact or from the airbag itself, or the whiplash injury. I had a whiplash injury when I had my accident in 2015, and it changed my speech. It changed my gait. It changed my ability to do almost everything for about 2 years. I went through whiplash concussion treatment for about 2 years to get my speech back and to get my memory back and to get my ability to function in my life as close to my baseline as it was before that accident. But when I see that happening, and I can see that someone is still the most important person in that moment. A highly narcissistic person, no matter how badly you've been injured in an accident, they're still going to be the most important person in that moment. And some of the people who are highly toxic cannot express empathy at all. I was hearing absolutely no words of empathy. Now, this is just probably within the hour of the accident when I happened to cross paths with them. To me, it was very obvious we're still in the first hour after this happened. So it's highly unlikely that everything that they say is going to be not emotionally charged. Okay. But I started to think about what must life be like for this young lady. Because if he's like this everywhere he goes, if he's like this in all situations, what happens if they are out to dinner and it's her graduation from college that they're celebrating, or it's her graduation from high school that they're celebrating, or it's her engagement that they're celebrating, or whatever it is, and it's for her, how much is he going to make it about him? And if somebody brings something to the table that's the wrong thing, is he going to ask them, would it be possible to have this switched for what I asked for, with compassion and with human decency? Or would he be saying, I want to talk to your manager because I want you fired. Get the manager now. I want you out of here. I want you fired over this. You did this to me once before. I was here 7 years ago, and you didn't get it right then, and you didn't get it right today. That's enough for you to be fired. Go get your manager. There are people who do things like that, and they are in the category of toxic person. Okay, that's toxicity. So I know it's kind of redundant for me to speak about toxic people and toxic behavior, but there are some things that we experience that are ours, and we're dealing with toxic people. And sometimes we're watching somebody else's toxic family stuff play out. But once we understand toxic people, then we're tuned to it. Our ears and our brain, everything, every part of us is tuned, not to just absorb it all, but tuned to, our ears prick up when we hear that stuff. And we go, oh, I know what that is. And that's some stuff that I no longer tolerate. If somebody is like that and they're in a relationship with me, that's stuff I don't tolerate anymore. And it feels good to have the awareness of it. Now, one last thing that I wanted to share was about my stone. Well, I had my finger checked by an ER doc, and he ordered an antibiotic for me, which I started ASAP. As soon as I got out of there, I started the antibiotic. And then I went to get my stuff when it was time for me to leave the room. They gave me my discharge papers. I signed them. It's time for me to go. And I brought my favorite holy stone because I thought that I was going to have a little tiny surgical procedure on my finger. I thought it was going to be injected with lidocaine, and that they were going to open it and they were going to have to drain the fluid that's in there. And that's not what happened. He said, it's borderline. I could or could not. I think I'm going to just try the antibiotics first. He said, if there is a pocket in there, and I think there is because it's hot and it's red, he said, that makes me think there is a pocket of something in there. He said, but it's probably so small at this point that the antibiotic will just take it down over a couple of days. And this way, I don't have to put you through that uncomfortable procedure. And so what's in my pocket is my holy stone. But when I had to go for x-rays, I didn't want that to be in any way in the x-ray room. So I set it on the little table that my tote bag was sitting on, one of those patient rolling, like they put your tray on, the tray table. And I set the stone on there. The tray table was dark brown, and my stone is dark brown. And when I got discharged, it was time for me to get out of there. I picked up my water bottle and my tote bag, and I made sure my book was in there. And I walked out without my stone. And so it's not in my life anymore, but it served me really well. And so what will I be doing? I'll be on a quest for another stone like it. They're not that unusual in the area where I live, because most of the almost the entirety of Buffalo Creek which dumps into Lake Erie. It has them all along its shoreline, those little flat sandstones that are kind of polished. So next time I take a creek walk, if I'm feeling up to it, might have a lot of back problems, but if I feel like I'm up to a creek walk, I'll keep my eyes open for another little holy stone. In the meantime, maybe the person who found it in that room when they had to clean it up when I left, the ER technician that came in after me, after I left, you might have thought, oh, cool little stone. I hope they put it in their pocket instead of throwing it out. But that little stone has helped me through a huge amount of my trauma recovery. And I've made over 500 videos on YouTube now. And I'm somewhere, I think around 520 today. I think this would be around there. And so that little stone played a big role in what I do here. So thank you for watching my video today. Thank you for coming to listen to about toxic people. And by the way, what's wrong in my side is a lot of inflammation from a really badly pulled muscle. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And so the only thing that I need to do is just heat and rest for a few days, and it'll be all good as new. So I had to check though. When pain is that severe, you have to check. All right. So if you're interested in becoming a client, please find my contact information in the description page for this video. I'll give it to you now as well. My website is linbouthillier.com, and you can email me lin@linbouthillier.com, and you can send me, it's spelled LIN at LINBOUTHILLIER. I know it looks like Lin Bouthillier, but it's a French Canadian name, and it is Bouthillier. Okay, so the next way you can contact me is by phone. It's 716-994-3052. And I would love to hear from you. If you are interested in one-on-one certified trauma recovery coaching with me, Lin Bouthillier, CTRC, I would absolutely be thrilled to be your co-equal partner in trauma recovery. So we can call me up, we can talk about it, and I can share with you the information about being a client and what that involves, and what it involves to receive certified trauma recovery coaching sessions. There is a nominal fee. I do charge for the discovery calls. And the reason I do that is I can be on the phone even over an hour with an individual, and I am doing my job while I do that. And I absolutely believe that there's nothing wrong with being compensated fairly for the time that you take to do your work. And so it's a nominal fee. I charge $24.50, but I stay on the phone with each individual as long as it takes to be answering your questions to your satisfaction. And so, so if you're interested in learning more about me and the coaching practice, please go to linbouthillier.com. You'll find lots of information there. Another thing that I wanted to ask you is if you would please hit the like button on this video. That would help me a lot. Helps the trauma and abuse community for you to like, subscribe, share, put comments in the comments section, hit the notification bell. And if you have anything that you have, I'm tripping over my words, I apologize. If there's a topic that you would like me to cover in a video, leave it in the comments section for you. If I make that video, I will get back to you in the comments section and tell you the title of the video and that it was just put up for you. So I hope all of you have the very, very best day. Please remember, self-care is never, ever selfish. It is essential. And you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery. See you next time, everyone.